Imagine a time when justice wasn't blind, it was brutal. When the law was written not with ink, but with iron and blood. In the Middle Ages, crime was not just punished, it was performed in public. A show of power. A warning to everyone watching. From hanging cages that left prisoners to rot, to fiery executions that lit up the town square, medieval justice was as terrifying as it was creative. Today, we are stepping into that world, to uncover what was done to criminals in the Middle Ages, how punishment shaped society, and why cruelty was seen as justice. To understand medieval punishments, we must first understand medieval justice. In the early Middle Ages, around the 5th to 10th centuries, there was no central authority like modern governments. Law and order were local matters. Kings, nobles, and even churches had their own systems of justice. Crimes were divided into two main types. Crimes against individuals, like theft or murder. Crimes against God or society, like heresy, witchcraft, or treason. The most common principle was an eye for an eye. If you stole, you might lose your hand. If you killed, you might lose your head. But justice wasn't always fair. Wealth and power decided outcomes more than evidence. A peasant could hang for stealing bread, while a nobleman could bribe his way out of any punishment. In many cases, there were no police investigations or legal defense. Instead, medieval justice relied on something far stranger: trial by ordeal. If someone was accused of a crime and there wasn't enough proof, they might be forced to hold a red-hot iron. If their burns healed cleanly, God had declared them innocent. Be thrown into water. If they floated, they were guilty. If they sank, innocent, but probably dead. Swallow poison or bread while swearing innocence. If they survived, they were cleared of charges. These trials weren't about logic, they were about faith. God was the judge, and the accused's survival was the verdict. But as time went on, torture became a standard tool of confession. Torture chambers existed in castles, monasteries, and dungeons. Common devices included the rack, stretching the body until joints dislocated. The Iron Maiden, a coffin lined with spikes. The thumbscrew, crushing fingers one turn at a time. The pillory, locking the head and hands in public humiliation. For many, the torture itself was the punishment: no trial, no defense, no mercy. Executions were not hidden away, they were events. The town square became the stage, and the executioner the star performer. People gathered with food, children, and laughter, to watch the condemned meet their fate. Some of the most common forms of execution included hanging, the most common punishment for theft, murder, or treason. The condemned were led through the streets, often forced to confess before the crowd. Beheading, reserved for nobles. Quick, clean, and honorable, if the executioner was skilled. If not, it could take several blows. Burning at the stake, mostly used for heretics and witches. The accused were tied to wooden posts and set ablaze as the crowd prayed or jeered. Boiling alive, used in certain periods for poisoning or treason. The victim was dropped into a cauldron of boiling water or oil. For the medieval mind, execution wasn't just about death, it was about displaying God's justice. Each punishment sent a clear message: crime would not be tolerated, and sin would not go unpunished. But medieval punishments were not only deadly, they were also creative. Some punishments were designed to match the crime exactly. Thieves might have their hands cut off or branded with a hot iron T for thief. Liars and gossips were forced to wear iron masks or the scold's bridle, a device that clamped their tongues. Adulterers could be flogged in public or forced to parade naked through town. Debtors might be locked in stocks or cages suspended over city gates, left to starve or freeze. Begging without permission could lead to whipping or branding. For nobles and knights, punishments were different: imprisonment, exile, or heavy fines. Meanwhile, peasants and townsfolk faced the full horror of medieval justice. Religion played a powerful role in shaping punishments. The Church believed that crime was not just against society, it was against God. Therefore, repentance was sometimes offered as an alternative to execution. A thief might be forced to walk barefoot to a holy shrine, fasting for weeks. A murderer might be sent on a crusade to redeem his soul through battle. But when it came to heresy, questioning church authority, mercy disappeared. The Inquisition, created in the 13th century, hunted heretics across Europe. Suspected witches, scholars, and even priests were tortured, interrogated, and burned. To doubt the Church was to invite death. Interestingly, prisons were not originally used for punishment. In the Middle Ages, prisons were temporary places to hold people until trial or execution. Conditions were filthy, dark, and disease-ridden. But by the late Middle Ages, around the 14th and 15th centuries, ideas began to shift. Thinkers and priests started to question whether cruelty truly brought justice. Gradually, imprisonment, labor, and reform replaced torture and public death. This was the seed of the modern justice system we know today. When we look back at the Middle Ages, their punishments seemed barbaric, cruel beyond imagination. But in their time, they believed such suffering purified the soul and kept order in a dangerous world. The scaffold, the dungeon, the iron mask, all were symbols of a society desperately clinging to control through fear. We've come far since then, from torture to trial, from vengeance to justice. But one truth remains timeless. How a society treats its criminals reveals the true face of its humanity.